Elton John once said, music has healing power. It has the ability to take people out of themselves for a few hours. And almost everyone knows what he means. You have probably had that moment where you were anxious, sad, heartbroken, angry, overwhelmed, or just emotionally exhausted. And before you called a friend, before you opened a journal, before you prayed, before you even knew what you were feeling, you reached for a song. Not because the song solved anything, but because for 3 or 4 minutes, it seemed to understand. There is now real research behind that instinct. In one major review of more than 100 randomized studies, music interventions were found to improve both psychological and physiological stress outcomes. And during the isolation of COVID lockdowns, one study found a 56% increase in the daily use of music for emotional regulation. So music is not just background noise. For many of us, it's an emotional first aid.
But here is the tension we want to explore today. What if the same song that helps you feel understood can also keep you stuck? What if music can help us process grief, anxiety, loneliness, and pain, but can also become a way of rehearsing those same emotions over and over again? And what changes when the lyrics are not just something we hear, but something we write ourselves?
Today we're talking about music, emotional distress, mental health, music therapy, songwriting, and the power and risk of giving our pain a chorus. Let's get into it. Welcome to the Mental Fitness Podcast in partnership with NUE, that's NUE, where we explore real tools and stories for building mental strength in the modern world.
All right, so there was some really fascinating research. There's lots of research in this area around music and how it relates to mental fitness. So the first concept is all about how, and we've all experienced this, but how music hits your body before it hits your logic. And music changes how you feel before you can explain why. We've all experienced this where, as soon as you play a song or as soon as you hear something, you can feel it emotionally before you're thinking about it logically. So researchers have mapped dozens of studies on this, and music seems to have its own route that the rest of emotion science doesn't really talk about. And it's kind of a release valve. And this isn't fringe neuroscience. There's thousands of studies now, and the field is growing fast. And what it looks like is this is why a song can crack you open in a car when a whole day of trying to think positive did nothing. It skips the part of you that defends and explains the logical side.
Isn't that so true? You just a song can take you so many places, bring back memories, change your mood, remind you of something. It just can be so powerful.
Yeah, and it goes to the fact that intellect alone, something felt is more powerful than logic or intellect, because talking yourself out of a feeling is like trying to push a door open against a strong wind, like a hurricane wind. Music instead is the side door. It gets to the feeling without the fight. So Dave, should I just go to my calm music playlists on Spotify or Apple Music and that just magically lowers my stress, or what does this look like?
Well, music really does lower stress, but it's not magic, and it's also not automatic. So music genuinely can bring stress down, but just hitting play is not really the active ingredient. The big study here pulled together more than 100 trials, almost 10,000 people, and the effect was real, especially for how stressed you feel. But here's the honest part. When you strip it down to healthy people just pressing play on some relaxing track in a lab, the effect basically vanishes. What brings it back is music that fits you. And even more than that, a guide. So therapist-led music therapy is where the effects get really strong. A generic, calm playlist somebody hands you does surprisingly little. But music you choose that fits you and fits the moment does a lot more. This makes intuitive sense to me. Music is so personal. Like the same song, like there's a heavy rock song that for someone is an amp up song and it just gets them super excited. And for someone else, it's just noise and gives them a headache. Or a classical music song that for someone else calms their stress and calms them down, but for another person just puts them to sleep. They have no interest in it. Music is so personalized that it's got to be stuff that we choose. So a therapist might not be able to effectively put together a playlist for you, but music that you choose that fits you. So it's like exercise. It's not a painkiller. A pill works the same no matter who takes it, but exercise only works when it's matched to you and you actually show up and do it. And so music's kind of like the second kind. So that's a little bit how it can impact us with stress and how it is related to our own agency in choosing. But what about, Luke, what about music for anxiety?
Yeah, the studies here actually piggyback on what you just ended with there. So listening to music definitely lowers anxiety. But the single biggest factor there is exactly that, whether you chose it. So when researchers pooled the anxiety studies, the effect was really large. And when people picked their own music, it nearly doubled compared to music someone else chose. More wasn't better either. Just under 30 minutes did the job. And this matters because anxiety is everywhere. Roughly 1 in 5 people, and only about 1 in 5 people of those ever get any treatment. So a tool you already have in your pocket is a really big deal.
So let me just make sure I understand that. You're saying there's a study where they played music, they were treating anxiety, and so it helped. But when those being studied picked the music, then the effectiveness of the reduced anxiety doubled.
Exactly. And what this means is the gym playlist that someone else is blasting at the gym can spike you because you didn't choose it. Whereas the 3 songs you choose in your own headphones can settle you. Same activity, opposite result. And the difference is that you are the one in control.
And that's why everyone has their earbuds in at the gym, right?
Exactly.
Your custom playlist.
You're matching your own wavelength. And it's the difference between, another analogy is like being handed a meal and cooking your own meal. In theory, it could be the same calories or even the same ingredients, but you have a completely different relationship to it.
I like the food analogy because you could think of, even if we're thinking, here we're talking about mental health treatment, music and like reducing stress or reducing anxiety symptoms. You can think of like in the food analogy, a nutritionist. And if they make a super healthy meal, but it's not something you like, it's like, versus like something that's also healthy, but you pick the ingredients and the flavors.
Exactly. So let's say I pick a song that matches my mood. And once I found a song that matches me, I chose, do I just listen to it over and over and over again, right?
Well, that's kind of interesting. The fourth concept that we identified in the research is sort of the shadow side, that rumination with a soundtrack and the fix. So basically, the same thing that helps you process can also help you spiral. And there's one simple move that flips it. So in one survey of around 700 people, the ones in a low mood were far more likely to ruminate with music. And it wasn't a subtle gap. It was actually really big. And then there was a different study that found the unhealthy way of using music tracked with depression. So the healthy way basically didn't. And here's the hopeful part. When researchers had people do one small reframe, just finding a different way to see the moment, then their mood lifted way more than when they were passively listening. And so a happy song or a sad song, it didn't matter. The song wasn't really the problem. It was what you did with your thoughts when it played, and that was really the lever. So it's important to recognize here that, we've all everything we've talked about so far, music can be so powerful, but that same song playing over and over and over again, depending on how we're internalizing it, can actually be a co-ruminating technique and kind of keep us stuck, and it can actually be harmful.
That's interesting.
Yeah, it is. Two people can play the same breakup song. One cries, exhales, and texts a friend. The other plays it 40 times and writes a whole story about being unlovable, right? Same song, but different experience. And for both, it can land emotionally. And for one, it can be helpful. It can be like, I feel understood, like this song, like really had kind of resonated with me. But then there's some movement afterwards where the other person just gets stuck in that like infinite replay loop.
That makes so much sense.
Like an interesting analogy is like music is it's like emotional electricity. It can power healing, but it can also power rumination. And the wiring is what decides how we internalize that song. So across all of this, the effects are real, but mostly short term. So the benefit fades if you stop. And that's not a hole in the argument that music can be helpful in building mental fitness and in improving our mood in certain situations. But that's the entire case for mental fitness, that is a daily practice instead of just a one-time fix.
Yeah. It's one tool in your toolkit, right?
Exactly.
So yeah, let's name what we're actually talking about here then. Music as emotional regulation, not entertainment, not background noise, like specifically for that. And we're talking about using music as a tool you can use on purpose to change, match, or move your emotional state.
Yeah. So we have to separate it from what it isn't. Like 3 things people lump together. There's music therapy. That's where there's a trained therapist using music inside of a sort of a therapeutic setting. There's music medicine. That's music used clinically to bring down pain, anxiety, or stress. And then there's everyday music regulation. That's basically what all of us do. Songs to feel less alone, songs to calm us down or to get hyped up or to grieve or whatever the emotion is. The research is strongest when the music is intentional and tied to reflection or relationship. That doesn't make everyday use meaningless. It means we can get more skillful at it.
Yeah, that's a clean example of the whole idea. It's because it's not a mood you stumble into. It's a skill you can train, and similar to rumination with music or not, noticing what a song is doing to you, and then choosing the next one on purpose. That's a rep relative to mental fitness.
Yeah. So that's the science. That's a summary of some of the concepts we found in the research. Music moves through the body. It lowers stress and anxiety when we choose it. It can backfire into rumination. But here's the real question. What does that actually look like at 11 p.m. on a hard night?
Right. Because everyone listening has done this to some extent without ever calling it emotional regulation. So let's talk about what it looks like and then give you something, the listeners, to do with it. So how about stress and overwhelm as a domain? Let's say it's an end of a brutal day. You put on that same wind down album, and what's actually happening in this instance is your nervous system is reading tempo and rhythm before your brain or that logical side of your brain even catches up. So that the shift when, as it relates to stress and overwhelm, is choose it on purpose and notice that it's choosing. You're choosing it intentionally in a stress overwhelm situation. And it's not just the sound that helps.
Yeah. I still think it's just amazing the power that music can have to actually do this. And we're not really getting into that in this episode, like the science of actually how different tempos and sounds and things does calm the nervous system. I think we've all experienced it at some point in our life. And so, we're talking more about like ways to apply it, but that's stress and overwhelm that you talked. There's also sort of the self-talk, the inner world, or the chatter. There's the sad song that gets you and it gets played on repeat over and over again. So what's actually happening is you may be processing or you may be rehearsing an identity, and repetition turns a temporary emotion into a familiar home. And so one way to shift that is ask the one question, after I'm listening, am I more able to live my life or less? Do I feel better, or does that song take me to a place that's harder to move from? And I think it's really important to noticing what different music does, like, and why we reach for it. And if the outcome we get, the question we've talked about in other episodes, what am I getting from this? I think we can ask that about certain songs. What am I getting from this? Like, and maybe it's developed a habit. We've developed a habit that when I'm in a certain mood, I reach for that certain song. And if that song brings you to a better place, then what am I getting from this is pretty good. But if that song takes you into a worse place, it's what you feel like, but like after listening to the song, what am I getting from this is like not very much, then that's where you may consider like removing that song from your playlist.
Yeah, that's a good point, because you can deeply resonate with something, but that doesn't necessarily mean you're moving in the right direction if you just keep playing it over and over again, right? So what is this doing for me? That's a good question. And then you can also use this, music in a powerful way too, in connection to others. A song might make you feel less alone in something, but at the same time, sharing a song, because music can give you language to what you couldn't say or you don't say out loud, which can open you up to people in your life. You can share the song and use the song to become more available to a person, not to replace one, right? So the way you're feeling about something, you can maybe share a song and like, this is how I feel. And that's a powerful way to connect with others.
Yeah. And I think what you're talking about is when you're listening to music alone, but intentionally with the purpose to become more available to the person. But I think that also we all recognize that when we enjoy good music together with people that have shared music interests, like what a way to bond people together than to be either singing together or listening to something powerful together. That there's just something about that, right? I go into a rock band concert, with your friends when you're in high school or something. I mean, I have like good memories of those things, and it just like really brings you together.
Yeah, exactly. What about parenting? I think there's always those stories of the teenager locked in their room listening to heavy metal music, and as a parent, you're like, oh no, this is bad music.
This is a good one because, I think this is, and I don't know if we want to get too much into the parenting philosophy in this episode, but it's a good one because the natural tendency is to blame the genre and to blame the music. But like the research says, don't do that. Don't blame the genre. There's risk that in a rumination pattern, but it's not the music itself. Like I think the important thing, the shift for parents is to get curious, not controlling, not banning the music, not being like, you shouldn't be listening to that, or that's concerning, or that's taking you into a dark place. But if they're listening to music that we are concerned about as parents in terms of like, wow, that they must be really depressed. The music isn't the cause. The music is a signal to how they're feeling inside. And it's not likely causing it. I mean, of course, we've talked, there can be harm in it helping them ruminate on it, but it's not the cause. So we should use it as a signal and get really curious. What does this song mean to you? Like, why do you like this? And, what is it? And then you might listen for things like, well, it's how I feel. It really, and then you'd be like, wow, well, tell me more about how you feel. It can open up a really good dialogue if we're not really trying to at least immediately censor the music, but like understand music matches internal state when it's chosen voluntarily. So when our teenagers are choosing certain kinds of music, the music isn't the cause. The music is the signal of how they're feeling. And so that just opens up a really good, so get curious about it and ask and try to understand, and then use your vast experience with music to introduce them to good music that might match their mood, that might be a little bit more helpful.
Yeah.
Or help them to understand the rumination power if they just keep listening to the same stuff over and over and over again. But for me, this was a big one that, like, I know sometimes when you hear that stuff from your kids, you're like, come on, like we can do better than that. But what really was like a big aha moment for me is the music isn't the cause. The music is the signal of how they're already feeling. So that should open up dialogue.
Well, that's a cool experiment in itself, even in regards to connecting with your child. Like when you say get curious, not controlling about it, right? Because you may be surprised of their insights to the song that you think is like heavy or dark. And they're like, no, this helps me in this way. It's like, oh, that's a new perspective.
That has actually happened to me so many times with my own kids and other youth when I listen to a song and I'm thinking like, that is like, I'm thinking to myself, that's a bunch of garbage. And then you're like, why do you like that song? And they sometimes have incredible insights about the meaning of the lyrics or the background of the artist who wrote it and the context of in which it was written. And you're like, I had no idea that you were assigning so much meaning to that song. But yeah, you can learn a lot just by asking.
So let's get into something practical listeners can take away. I think for this one we have two. One for music they listen to, and then one other tool for lyrics they might write.
The first tool is sort of match, move, and land. And so this is a simple way to use a playlist as regulation instead of as a loop.
And this is really the counter to how to not use music as rumination and escape that loop.
Yes, good point. So step one is match. That's starting with a song that honestly matches where you are. And what it looks like is like, I'm feeling anxious right now, or I'm grieving, or I'm just numb, or I'm really down, or whatever it is. The matching song helps you feel seen instead of fighting that. And this is where almost everyone starts. I mean, this is the healthy uses of music, and then even music used in rumination. It all starts here. And so it's not a bad thing. If we're feeling down, it's a good place to start to listen to some music that matches how we're feeling. But that's just step one. The problem is some people get stuck there, and then they just put that on replay, and then they just match, and then they never pull out of it. Step two is move. So after a song or two, pick something that moves you just one notch in the direction you want to go. Not from despair to elation and joy, but just one step. So from panic to steadiness, or from anger to clarity, or from shame to compassion, or something. And then the third step is end on a song that returns you to your life, or to where you want to be, one with real action. And what that might look like is actually texting a friend, or going outside, or being able to fall asleep, or take a shower, or apologize, or whatever it is that you can actually return to real life. Now, this simple practice, this is crazy, but I was telling you about this earlier, Luke. But we were researching this, we were preparing this for today's episode, and I had an opportunity to apply this in my own life just 2 days ago. And I came out of a meeting that was really good and really productive, but it was very intense. And the mood after the meeting was just one of, it was more like I was in deep thought and just thinking about things in a deep way. And then I was on my way to an investor lunch. And for that, I was going to meet with an investor, and I needed to be I wanted to be, and felt I needed to be high energy, excited, like hopeful, optimistic. And I was thinking like, oh, I don't even feel like going to this lunch. And because of this, I tried this. So this was the first time I'd personally applied it. So I just started listening to some music that sort of matched how I felt, just the seriousness of the mood. And then after a couple songs, I started listening to something that was like a little bit more upbeat. And then I got in my car to leave this appointment, and then on the way there, I started listening to like my favorite hype songs. And within a few minutes of that, I'm like screaming at the top of my lungs, singing, driving by myself, singing lyrics to my favorite songs, and really getting excited. And so was very effective in moving me from where I was to where I wanted to be. And I didn't know how I was going to do it. I was just sitting there thinking, oh my gosh, I'm just not in the mood to do this, but I knew I needed to go. And so it was kind of cool. Like, this made sense and logically, but it wasn't just a gimmick. Like, I took time to match the mood, to listen to the music, to recognize how I felt. And I think that first step was super important. If you're feeling down, you don't just put on a hype song.
Yeah, exactly.
It's too much. It's too much to start. I got there step by step, but it really worked. It was so cool.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Match, move, land. And the cool thing about this tool, match, move, land, is it is the research turned into a practical tool. It's a habit, right? So self-selected, it's intentional, and it's built to end in movement instead of rumination. So it is a really powerful framework.
Yeah, and I think it's important to realize that the goal of emotional regulation is not to stop feeling. The goal is to feel in a way that lets you keep living. And that's why that first step is so important, because if it were to stop feeling, it would have just been like, I'm just going to suppress my emotions, put on my game face, put some hype music on and go fake it. But the thing is, I wasn't faking it. Because I took time in each of those steps, I actually genuinely felt excited. My mood had changed 180 and I was ready to go.
Everything we talk about on this show, the science, the frameworks, the habits, New is where you actually put it into practice. New is the mental fitness app built to help you reflect, notice patterns, and build real mental strength and capacity over time. It remembers what you're working on and meets you where you are. Not therapy, not toxic positivity, just a daily practice for your mental fitness. If you're watching this, scan the QR code on screen. If you're listening, head to talkwithnew.com. That's talkwithnue.com. So that's the first tool, match, move, land. Try that out for emotional regulation. Tool number 2 is rewriting the chorus. And I start this out with an Ed Sheeran quote. He said, I think any time I've ever got down or ever felt low, the one thing that picks me up from that is writing a song about it. At least you've got a positive experience out of a bad experience. And yes, he is a songwriter. He's a famous musician and singer. But this tool here, rewriting the chorus, can be applied by anyone. So for anyone who wants to go further and write down their own lyrics, the active version where the evidence on songwriting points, putting the hard to name internal state into words, building agency and connection. That's what this is about. So here's how that could look. Verse 1, tell the truth. Write exactly how it feels. No editing, no pretending. And this has a lot of ties, Dave, to other science and writing, like even just expressive writing, right?
Yeah, I was thinking about that. Our episode with Dr. Pennebaker, kind of the pioneer of expressive writing research.
Yeah, exactly. So if you're thinking about writing a song or a chorus, verse 1, tell the truth, write exactly how it feels, no editing, no pretending. Verse 2, add another layer, add perspective. Write in the voice of a compassionate friend, a parent, your future self, God. And then, so that's verse 1. Verse 2, you add perspective. And then the chorus, write what you need to remember. This is the line you'll repeat. So make it honest, but don't make it hopeless. I'm hurting, but I'm still here. This is real, but it's not the whole story. And then lastly, the bridge. Name one next step. I'll call someone. I'll sleep this off before I decide. I'll try again tomorrow.
Yeah. And the chorus matters because the chorus is what we practice.
Yes.
I think it's interesting. I'm not a musician. I love music, but I've never really written my own music. I don't have that skill, but I love music. But I've kind of I think we've all done this where there's that song that we really like how it sounds and like maybe the general message, but there's like the one part, the one verse where the words are wrong. Like I don't know, the song Brown Eyed Girl, but the girl you have a crush on has green eyes, so you like change the words, or it's, there's some line in there that doesn't fit because it mentions something specific that doesn't quite fit your situation, and so you kind of change the words a little. But that's what I kind of like, is you don't have to be musically talented for this. You just take a song that you like and you rewrite the lyrics for you, right? That's what we're talking about, right? Like an existing song.
Yep, exactly.
A funny example of that is I have 8 kids. Some of them are out of the house now, but during the pandemic, there were 10 of us at home, my wife and I and the 8 kids. And there's that song, Just the Two of Us, just the two of us. And I'll sing that song always when we're all together, but I just changed the chorus to Just the 10 of us. Just the 10 of us. But it's actually, and there's a few other lyrics in that song I changed. So like when we're driving as a family, I'll put that song on and I sing over the music so everyone hears what I'm singing, which is Just the 10 of us. And there's lots of times when I've done that where I've just sort of customized the lyrics of a song to me.
That's awesome. And I'm going to try if you could take nothing else, you can write a chorus, you can write a song, but I want to build a 3-song playlist now. One that matches how I feel, one that moves you one step, and one that helps me land. I love that. Those are some cool tools.
Well, weren't you talking earlier about like what's your favorite music?
Oh, yes. I guess I did experience this just to some extent as well in preparing for this. I love, my wife's a classically trained singer. That's what she went to school for. So I've learned to really appreciate classical music. And one of my favorite is Vivaldi's The Four Seasons. And I was talking to you about this before, Dave, but there's such a broad spectrum of emotion. It's a whole, all going through the seasons, right? There's such a broad spectrum of emotion. So what I was telling you is just that, the Four Seasons in themselves has all the emotions you need. Even if you just go straight to the Four Seasons, if you're in a high energy state, start with, I think it's summer, right? That's the end of the summer part that's really high energy. And so that, even just looking at the Four Seasons alone, go test that out. Go find all the different emotions there and find the 3 sections or 3 songs to move you.
That's what I was thinking. The order in which he wrote it, which it matches the seasons, but it's also sort of symbolic of a life. Like spring is the beginning of a life. Summer might be the peak of our life. Fall are those like more experienced years. And then winter is the old age and death. But it's also a cycle that's part of life. And after spring or after winter always comes spring. But the order in which it's written is spring, summer, fall, winter. And I was thinking for this tool, it's almost just switching the first and second half, like fall and winter at the beginning, followed by spring and summer. Like if you're feeling down, like if you're just lonely and down, it's a dark time in your life. Like the winter movement is really powerful and it can capture that emotion. And then it very subtly, through the music, it's like the ice starts to thaw, the snow melts, there's water runoff, there's streams, there's new life, and spring comes. And then the high energy is like the summer and even the beginning of the autumn. I think it's called autumn is like the high energy. And so it's almost if you just like put winter in front instead of in back, then that Four Seasons piece can be the tool for this. It's 40 minutes. You can do it in a 40-minute session.
All right. So what are the, as we go through this, maybe let's touch on some of the, common pitfalls or mistakes that can happen here with using music.
Yeah. One is mistaking intensity for healing. So there's the flood of emotion feels like progress so if music unlocks intense emotions, that doesn't necessarily mean that we're moving towards healing. But ask if you're more able to live life after, or if you're just more caught in that moment. It's kind of like, what is this doing for me? Is this just making me feel more sad, or is it helping me pull out of it? So that's one pitfall, is just thinking just because I'm experiencing intense emotions that I'm somehow making progress.
Another one I'll touch on. We've said this again, but I think it's an important point. Getting stuck in the matching song, that first song, right? Feeling understood is very powerful. So you might stay there. So match and then deliberately move. The point of step one, matching, finding the song that matches you and helps you feel understood, is to earn step two. Move one level forward with the next song. So don't get stuck in the matching song.
Yeah. And then another pitfall is just expecting a calm playlist to fix you. You know, we can't treat music like it's a pill. It only works when you choose it and engage it. Like, you got to make it yours. And it's not a magic quick fix, but it is a powerful tool that can help move our emotions.
And I like the part you touched on, Dave, around, you know, one of the pitfalls is you talked about the scenario with a child or a kid, but blaming the genre, right? Where dark music, quote unquote, looks like the cause. The pattern is the risk of rumination, but it's not the playlist. So teach the skill, help people around you that are, you know, listen to music like this, maybe understand and notice and have the awareness to see where it's leading them. But don't necessarily immediately censor.
Yeah, I think this actually goes broader than the parent-child relationship. It can be in a like spouse relationship or with friends or anything. If we hear someone listening to some music and it's like, let's just say it's a friend, and you have a friend that's really down and they're always listening to this sad music. Like, it's not helpful the music isn't the reason they're feeling sad. The music is them just trying to express and feel and match that mood. And so it's like, it's like, you just got to stop listening to sad music. You know, it's just like saying, just stop being sad. Instead, be curious. Like, wow, I noticed you listen to this music a lot. Like, tell me more about it. Like, how does it make you feel? And then help them to realize that, like, if you stay there, it's not helpful. But yeah, the music isn't the cause. The music is the symptom or the signal. And then the last pitfall is, as we talk about writing, if you want to write lyrics and things, is just writing a hopeless chorus on repeat. Like, we want to be honest in what we write, but honesty can also tip into like rehearsing an identity. And so really what's important is to be honest, but not hopeless. Always end the bridge on a next step. Like, the point is to lift and uplift. So the point isn't to find a way to be permanently stuck in this current state. Like, it has to be with an intended purpose of pulling us out of it.
Yeah. The problem isn't necessarily the music in itself. You know, the problem is not sad music. The problem is getting stuck in sad music without movement, without reflection and support.
Yeah, very well said. So we all have experienced this, that music can be so powerful. It's good to sort of, and a lot of people have this. A lot of people have their hype song and their I'm feeling down song and their other things. But I think it's actually helpful if you just take some time to intentionally categorize some of your favorite music into these so that you can use them as a tool. And, you know, I just remember when I was a 17-year-old and just probably going through, I don't think I was ever depressed, like clinically depressed or went through any serious, I don't know if what I went through is anything abnormal, but as a 17-year-old boy trying to become a man, you're trying to figure stuff out. I listened to a lot of Pink Floyd at that time. And Pink Floyd is like the typical like depressed music to me. And still, I don't listen to very much Pink Floyd anymore, but sometimes when I'm just in one of those moods, I'll just put on some Floyd, and it's like just this like, you know, but after a while it's like, geez, I don't want to be here anymore. And so that's not bad. I think it's good to live in that feeling for a moment. But then it's like, you know, let's switch it up and put something else on. And so for me, like, you can tell the era in which I grew up with, like, Floyd is kind of my low mood. And then AC/DC and Guns N' Roses are some of my like hype songs and pump me up and stuff, and all kinds of stuff in between.
Love that. So let's bring it home and kind of recap. Maybe I'll touch on 2 ideas from this episode, Dave, and then you touch on a couple as well. But I think a key point in recap of this episode is music is really powerful because it reaches you through the body before logic. So that's why it works when arguing with yourself or trying to talk yourself out of a mood doesn't work, right? So and then the second is it really does lower stress and anxiety, but mostly when you choose it. That was a interesting perspective I hadn't thought about, and agency being the active ingredient.
And I think another really important point related to that is the same mechanism can flip into rumination. So the fix is movement and a reframe, not a different song. And you got to recognize if you're just playing the same song, literally the same song, or the same type of music over and over and over again, and it's not getting you somewhere, then it can be a ruminating tool. And then the two tools we talked about, there's match, move, and land for listening to music. And then another tool is rewrite the chorus for rewriting the lyrics to a song you like and making them yours. And that can be a powerful expressive tool.
And music can help you feel what you need to feel. But relative to mental fitness is learning to use it to move through emotion instead of making a home inside the emotion.
So here's what we want to leave with you this week. Build that 3-song playlist. One that matches how you feel, one that moves you a step, and one that helps you land where you want to be. And then ask yourself the only question that really matters here. After listening, am I more able to live my life?
If this episode hit home for you, please do us a favor and leave a rating or review wherever you're listening. It takes about 30 seconds, and it's genuinely the most powerful way to help this show reach people who need it. Share it with someone who could use it, leave a rating, and we'll see you next week.